Literally, first of all, we had our intelligence. We had our what? Intelligence. Because you can't do anything without intelligence. We stood in front of, some brothers stood in front of the crack house. Other brothers marched up and down the street. And some brothers were riding cars. And that began, and I'm going to tell you something. It was the dead of winter. And I'm talking about not for a couple hours a day, but for 24 hours a day, for 40 days and 40 nights. If you think you're going to clean up the drugs by having a big demonstration and marching around, you think that's going to clean up the drugs? It will never clean up the drugs. They will watch you and see if you have staying power. Right. So Allah blessed us. And let me tell you something. It got rough. I remember one time the troops were real thin. Just a handful of brothers left. I'm telling you, a handful of brothers were left. You know what I did? Was one morning at Salatul Fajr. I went to one of the masjids. I'll never forget this. And after the prayer, this is like 5 o'clock in the morning, I addressed the brothers and I said, you know what? We're over there at Masjid al-Taqwa. We're trying to clean up the drugs and we need some help. And I gave an impassioned plea. And I'll never forget, they had about 25 carloads of brothers. They followed me to Masjid al-Taqwa and they held security. Long story short, we were able to get rid of the drug houses. And when you look at the masjid now, all those abandoned buildings gone. You know one of the things that Muslims are doing now in New York City? We have a lot of Muslim businesses who used to rent from other people. And as long as you're renting from someone else, you're at their mercy. We had a brother named Musa, a souk bookstore. Famous Muslim bookstore forever. He had to move because the landlord charged him some obscene rents and he couldn't pay it. And that was happening to a lot of the brothers. You know what they started doing? They started buying the buildings themselves. And so now if you come in our area, you see a lot of the buildings owned by Muslim brothers. Used to have abandoned buildings, no more abandoned buildings. Crime has significantly dropped in that area. And how did we do it? And what are you going to do, inshallah, in the next few minutes? Now, a principle. Allah said in the Quran, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Help you one another in righteousness and the fear of God. من رأى من قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من رأى منكم منكر فليغيره بيده. Let him who sees an evil change it with his hand. And this is the key. If he is unable to change it with his hand, let him change it with his tongue. And if he's unable to change it with his tongue, let him change it with his heart. وَذَلِكَ الْعَدَفُ الْإِمَانِ. And this is the weakest of faith. So the question is, in your area, do you see evil? Do you see wrong? How do you want to stop it? You know, we can't stop it. What we going to do about it? What we going to do? Let me tell you something. If you continue the way you are right now, they will kill you. They will kill you. I'm serious. And that's what's happening right now all over the country. In these inner cities, they're devastating the area. Homes are being broken into. You know the newest thing now? In the old days, they used to break into your house. They used to burglarize your house when nobody's there. Now, what do they call it now? Home invasions. You don't have that here. What do you mean no? What do you mean no? You don't have that here. You're supposed to say, yes, you do. You have it here? You have that here? Can you imagine? We had cases. Somebody, broad daylight, they know you home. They know you home. And they break in your home and they rob you and sometimes they kill you. The question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to sit there and wait for them to come? Or are we going to do something about it? And the question is, what can we do about it? I'll leave you with this thought. I was speaking to a brother this morning. We had lunch and I forgot who was saying, yeah, yourself. You were saying that we need courage. We need courage. Let me say something about courage. Courage Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Rather, courage is to move forward despite your fear. Give an example. Heard of Malcolm X? Heard of Malcolm X? Malcolm X was assassinated in 1965 on a Sunday, I think February 21st. The day that he was assassinated, he drove by himself to, you would think, to the Autobahn. But you know, that day he parked his car about 10 blocks from the Autobahn and began to walk by himself. Some of his followers happened to see him, and they were driving and said, "Malcolm, what are you doing? Get in the car." And they drove Malcolm to the Autobahn. There was a professor, I think Eric Lincoln, I think that's who it was. He was a professor at one of the universities, I think Brown University. Friday before Malcolm was assassinated, he said, "Malcolm, I want you to come to my school on Tuesday and teach my students." Malcolm said, "I'll be dead by Tuesday." I said, "Malcolm, stop joking." He said, "I'm not joking." "Malcolm, come to our school." He said, "Okay, I'll be there Tuesday if I'm alive." Malcolm was in the back room, and Benjamin Kareem, his longtime assistant, was opening up for Malcolm. Two things Malcolm did. In the Nation of Islam, they used to check people before you come in. They used to frisk people. Malcolm was doing that at first, but he said on that day, don't search the people. Malcolm is in the back saying to his assistants, "I feel something is wrong. I feel as if I should not go out there." And they said, "Malcolm, then you shouldn't go." And he said, "No, I have to." You know, Imam, Brother Benjamin Kareem, he lived in Richmond, Virginia for many years. I used to go visit him, and I used to talk to him. I used to try to get information about Malcolm. He told me that Malcolm saved his life that day. He said that whenever I introduce Malcolm, I would introduce Malcolm and sit there next to him. He said on that day when I introduced Malcolm, and by the way, Malcolm had a way of saying, "Make it plain." You know what that meant? When the assistant was opening up for Malcolm, "Make it plain" was a key. Like, "Okay, I'm ready." Yeah? All right. And he said, I opened up for Malcolm, and I was about to sit down, and Malcolm said, "Don't sit there. Go in the back." And he said the moment he went in the back, he heard pow, 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 and Malcolm was assassinated. Courage. One of the things that we're going to have to do to get our streets back is to have courage. If you don't have courage, it's not going to work. Now what courage? We're going to die? Maybe. I close with this.